Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is Christopher Aaron. It is early in the morning on July 11th, 2019. I'm back in the plush but not overly ostentatious iGold studios, and I'm glad to be back here with you. Let's have a proper silver price update, shall we? It's been a while since we've looked at the silver market. I think that a very interesting move is getting ready to set up here in silver. I think it's going to shock a lot of people, actually, in both directions, higher and lower. So let's look at the potential for this, what could be setting up here, and look at some historical comparisons for the silver market and how we might get ready for this. Let's dive in. By the way, I wanted to say also, it's flattering. I would say it's flattering. I've received some comments. Some people actually think that I am an agent of the Federal Reserve, that I'm out here, that I've here putting videos out to propagate negative information on the precious metals. And I'm blown away by this, almost in a good way, that you think I could be out here to do such a thing. Because nothing is further from the truth. I actually think the best thing in the world would be for the central banks to be abolished, including the Federal Reserve, for us to go back to a gold standard or perhaps a dual monetary standard backed by gold and silver. I think nothing would be better for not only the soundness of our currency, but for the well-being of the population, the world at large, and the future of humanity. So I am a believer in precious metals, but one of the things that I believe, one of the things that I know, is that it doesn't matter what I believe, and it doesn't matter what the fundamentals are, because the markets can move opposite to the fundamentals for decades at a time. So I'm also a realist. And I wanted to make this video to show you some of the historical examples here of what is setting up. Now, we are looking at the gold to silver ratio on the top, price of gold in the middle, price of silver on the bottom, going all the way back to 2002. Now, if this is small on your screen, I encourage you to pause and zoom this in, 1080p, do as best as you can, use an external monitor or something, get a real good look at this, and notice here that the gold to silver ratio is breaking out. It's breaking upward above a multi-decade resistance zone here, multi-decade highs. When is this happening? Right as gold is approaching this base resistance zone, trying to break out amidst a red flag of the gold to silver ratio, and silver is just grinding its way. Have we seen this setup ever before in history? Because markets don't always repeat, but they do tend to rhyme. Have we ever seen this before? This is interesting. Look at from 1971 to 1978, including the peak in gold, the peak in silver. Notice the similar peak in gold, peak in silver, with the spike lower in the gold to silver ratio each time. Notice 7 or 8 years later, the gold to silver ratio breaking out. 7 years later, gold to silver ratio breaking out. Gold approaching its base resistance zone. Right here. And what happened? This little overlooked period in history that we call the year 1987. Now, I know 1987 was a good year for me. I was in the first grade, and I remember the Boston Celtics were playing against the Los Angeles Lakers. And I thought they were going to win back-to-back championships at that age, but they did not. They lost, but it was the first series that I really remember clearly from my youth. Anyway, this period, let's zoom in on this, because I know some of you will be saying, this time is different. This is not the 1980s, even though we see these technical patterns shaping up over and over. So some of you will say, none of this applies. But I'll just tell you, listen to the words of Mr. John Templeton here. Beware of those 4 most expensive words. It's dangerous. As we see these similarities here between these two periods, zooming in on this 1986 to 1987 move in the price of silver. As I said, very few people study this time period in close depth. We're looking at a daily bar chart of silver from late 86 into the middle part of 1987. Look at this surge in silver. You can count the days that this surge lasted for. I'll sum it up for you. This was a 90% surge, almost a doubling in the price of silver in 8 weeks. Can you imagine what this would mean in today's dollars? This would be like silver going from $15 to about $28 in 8 weeks, almost touching 30. Can you imagine that? So I want to challenge you to actually think about this for a moment. What would you be going through? What would your emotions be if you're holding silver now, or silver miners, and the price of silver doubles almost in 8 weeks? And we're talking this time in September, silver is at $30. Would you be saying this is the start of a bull market for sure? A doubling in 8 weeks. We're off to the moon. All those people who were talking about $50 and $100 and $500 silver and $1,000 silver, they were right. We're off to the moon. This is it. Now. Well, here's the period from history. Let's zoom it out a few years. Here was that 90% surge. We've seen this before. So it was entirely given back over the next 3 years and then some, made a new low after a 90% surge. Okay? We need to be very careful. Let's look at one other period from history. Let's go back a little bit further and look at the 1982 to 83 move. Even more dramatic. Look at this. 1982 leading into 1983. 200% surge in 8 months. This would be like silver going from $15 to $45. Can you imagine what would happen to the profits of the silver miners? Can you imagine what people would be saying about the US dollar amidst this kind of a move in 8 months? The end of the dollar, the end of fiat currency. It's all happening now. We're going to be the next Zimbabwe. Look at this. If this continues, riots in the street surely are the next thing to happen. Zoom it out. There's the 200% move, followed by 20 years of declining prices. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't think this kind of thing can happen again, this is where we are. We are at exactly the same technical backdrop as those two previous surges. This is more close to the 1987 surge, if you ask me. Now, is this going to play out exactly the same way again? Probably not. In fact, I can pretty much guarantee it won't play out exactly the same way again. But are we seeing the exact same technical backdrop, the same red flags when we look at the breaking out of the gold to silver ratio at the same time as gold is approaching this major resistance zone and silver is still lagging, but looks like maybe it wants to play catch up or something? Maybe something dramatic wants to happen here that provides an amazing opportunity over the intermediate term, but then gives back those gains. Could we imagine that? Let's look at the 2016 example here, looking at a 55% rise in the price of silver. So a little more than half of that move from 1987. Look at what happened with the silver miners, up 385% amidst the 55% move in silver in 6 months. So what if it's a 90% advance in silver that is setting up now? What if it is a 200% advance in silver like the move from 1982? What would happen to those silver miners? This bears your thinking about. This might not be comfortable. I never said the information that I present here is going to be comfortable, but I'll assure you this. I'm not an agent of the central banks. I'm an investor in the precious metals. I believe in sound currency, but I also recognize that we may not have sound currency for the next 10 or 20 years. Things may take very different shapes than the diehard gold and silver bugs would want to believe. And what I suggest is that we prepare for the most realistic scenarios, not only the scenario that we hope will manifest. So I suggest you get ready for something that may look like a dramatic silver surge here to catch up with gold, or to at least attempt to catch up with gold. But I would say that if and when that happens, that may be the opportunity to actually sell. God forbid someone say the word sell with precious metals. But I suggest that may be the time to consider taking some, if you have profits in this surge, perhaps taking some of them off the table, or perhaps taking protective action, or perhaps just not chasing the move higher, but waiting to see if it gives back some of those gains like it did in 1983 and 1987. I believe that will be the prudent model within the next 18 months. If you would like to know exactly what we are doing here, how we are timing that, we just made a big purchase in a silver mining company, just to let you know. So I'm not against investing in the sector, even though I think this move may not last forever. You can find more on the exact moves that we're making, all the analysis that goes into this, much more depth than you are seeing here. Precious Metals Intelligence is available on the homepage. I work with individuals, just to let you know, on a one-on-one basis. It doesn't matter whether you're just starting in the sector or whether you are advanced and looking to diversify within the precious metals sector. I simply give you an independent, researched perspective from someone who does not sell the metals. All I do is provide research and what would I do if I was in your scenario, from someone who approaches this themselves independently. There is a new service called Global Market Intelligence that is coming out in the near future. I ask for your patience on that. A lot of things have come across my desk here just in the last couple of weeks, so I have to prioritize things. I do thank everyone who supports these free videos on Patreon. I hope that some valuable information is able to be conveyed here through my rambling and through my historical examples. I really do believe in this research, and I hope it can provide some framework for what we may expect going forward. I'm going to be trying to produce these videos as often as I can, but this is actually the first time, I think, since I started this channel that I have to tell you I will not be producing videos every week going forward now. There is a lot coming forward on my plate, and I'm managing a lot of things simultaneously, so I will be producing videos as often as possible. I'll just leave it at that. Thank you. Have a great rest of your week.